I'm going to keep this video short. Basically, it's a personal experience I just had concerning the blemdemic. And unfortunately, family members can be part of the blemdemic problem. And I had an experience with a family member recently that I wanted to share so it could add, some perspective to what the blemdemic is and what the problem of America is, and how people who think that they're doing the right thing and they think that they're trumpeting the proper methods to try to fix the blemdemic are in actuality the problem of the blemdemic, and also the Borg mentality. But before I get into that experience, I first want to bring up an experience that I had that I just remembered back in it was probably about 20 years ago. And I used to be a carpet installer, and I went to this home that had some water damage, and they were trying to get a quote on, the repair costs for getting the carpet reinstalled, and for the amount of carpet they would need to replace the areas that were damaged. And this lady was a wealthy lady, and she lived in a nice neighborhood who didn't have shelters and didn't have, things that cause problems in your neighborhood, because she had a lot of money and was able to pay off, other people to be able to move those in different parts of the town so they didn't have to be near where she lived. And so anyway, I go there, and she's all upset because apparently I had given her a quote on the carpet and on the amount, on the labor that needed to be done in order to do the job, and she couldn't believe how much lower my bid was compared to the other installers that she had there. Since they knew that this was an insurance job, they went ahead and they added a lot more cost and to the job. They figured it was going to be a payday, so they went ahead and basically doubled what the actual cost would be. And so the lady gets upset. She's like, well, this is what's going on in this country. This is the fleecing of America. And I thought, yeah, it happens a lot. There's a lot of crooked people out there. And unfortunately, these crooked people are people who think they're actually good people. And then the thing is as the conversation went on, I went back through to double check my measurements to make sure I hadn't made a mistake and why my numbers were so low. And the thing is as I was in the process, she goes, well, can you go ahead and measure, this stairwell here, and can you measure this other back room too? And because what she was going to do was she was going to submit the bid from the other contractor to the insurance company, but then use me as the installer, and actually do the work. But then what she was going to do, she was going to take the extra money that she was going to get from the insurance company and purchase carpet for those extra areas, because she figured she was going to save that much money by having me do the job. Yeah, and this is the same woman that just got upset about the fleecing of America. And yet she was going to take advantage of the insurance company and, basically take the extra profit that the other contractors were going to get and just use it herself. And so here she is, basically, like the old Bible scripture says, casting the mote out of your neighbor's eye when maybe you need to cast it out of your own eye first, or something like that. Well, there you have it. There's your prime example of someone who thinks they're self-righteous and that they're basically unable to make mistakes and that they're as, honest as everybody else, when in reality, they are part of, and the reason why we have so many issues in this country. Yeah, and to go to my family experience, basically I was, in a conversation with a group of people, and this one person has this dance studio, and this dance studio happens to be in a bad part of town. It's an old part of town, and most old parts of towns have people that have drug problems and people that live on the street and people that will probably hang out in the parking lots and in the areas where you're trying to do business. And in this particular family member, every time you'd see her, she would be lamenting about the problems she has with those homeless people. And so she was talking to some younger members of the family and basically telling them that it was, society's fault because they weren't calling it into the police, because the police aren't actually able to do anything about it unless someone calls first. And the other family member, the younger one, said, well, that really isn't going to fix the problem. Well, this lady, she basically just started steamrolling and repeating the same thing over and over again, saying that, well, if everyone would just do it, this problem would go away. And the thing is the family member said, the younger one said, well, there's people on the other side of the voting block that actually would probably fight against you trying to kick them out of that area. And that's what's going on in this country, is you have a group of people that think it's okay that children can be sexually mutilated. Yeah, that's how bad it has gotten. Have you stopped and looked at it? So if you have people that are willing to sexually mutilate children, and there's a throng of people out there that support that, then why don't you think there's a group of people that thinks, well, that's a good place for the homeless people to be, is near these parking lots of these businesses in areas that have lighting and areas that have food close to the area that you do business, because they can get free handouts from others, because they got to go somewhere, right? So anyway, this family member continued to mantra, what she was saying. And I said, wait a minute. I said, now hold on. I said, well, what happens once they catch these guys? And she's like, well, then they, and then I was like, well, they just let them go. Yeah. So if they get caught trespassing in an area like where your dance studio is, they're going to let them go. So in reality, calling the police isn't going to fix the problem. I said, look at Portland. Look at Seattle. I said, look at those places. They've gotten worse over the last 10, 15 years. Just like where your dance studio is. It's getting worse. And the thing is, it's been like that since the dawn of time. Rome had problems with that. Every civilization has issues with the areas that are downtrodden and for poor people. And so you know what the solution is? It's either you have to have a giant revolution and basically destroy humanity on the planet and start over again, or as a person who owns a business in a shitty part of town, you're going to have to move. You're going to have to pick up your place and move. And and then all of a sudden she's like, well, I can't afford to move because I have to pay $9,000 for a month for a prescription drug. And I'm like, well, you work for a company, right? You have insurance? Yeah, but I can't afford to move. I have to pay $9,000 a month. And so at this time, I'm just like, wow, right? I'm like, this person is ignoring what I'm saying, does not want to answer my question. Because she's not paying $9,000 a month. And yet this is a Republican that likes to beat her chest and use catchphrases and slogans to try to basically brainwash and manipulate whoever she's talking to. And the sad thing is, it doesn't even matter who she's talking to. It's never made for the individual she's talking to. It's just a general rant and lament about her condition because of the fact that she can't afford to move her dance studio. And the reason why she can't afford to move her dance studio is because she has spending habits that are completely extravagant. Okay? This person lives in a home that I believe she's been living there for over 20 years. She has refinanced the house. She's got second mortgages on the home. She goes on cruises all the time. She's got an alcohol problem. And she has a boyfriend that's been living with her for 15 years. Yeah, they haven't even been married. Okay? And it's like she wants to blame it on people not calling the cops to come in and tattle on these homeless. And the thing is, here's the deal. The cops already know they're there. They already know it. And when the cop gets called, he's doing his job. He's going to go over there. He's going to pick him up. They're going to take him into the station. They're going to book him. They're going to get his name. They're going to put him on file. And guess what? The next morning, you know what they're going to do? They're going to let him out. Now, if you happen to be in a rich neighborhood and they get caught trespassing, well, and if you have some sway, guess what? That person will probably go in jail for a couple months for trespassing. Maybe even a year if you happen to be a politician, right? Or like a movie star who has a lot of clout and is very important for society. They might end up in jail for maybe more than a year, maybe 5 years. But when you're just a person who owns a little shop in downtown Kennewick, and it's basically overrun by homeless, well, where else are they supposed to go? Yeah, and the homeless problem stems from bad management of the drug problem we have. And I've talked about the drug problem in this country, how it is actually promoted by the government and by people who have money and clout. Because what it does is, like I said, you just watch some of my other videos. I'm not going to get into that. But the problem is so huge that it will require pretty much mass death, and the whole idiot society that we have living today has to be reset and reminded that we live on a planet that spins through space, and there's certain truths and certain ways of living that have to be adhered to, or we will be destroyed. And this mutilation of children, whether or not they think they're a guy or a girl when they're little kids, is atrocious. And I don't know what could be much worse than that. I'm really surprised there isn't a group of people that have risen up and actually clamored that this needs to stop. Where's all the religious people? But anyway, I'm getting off track. So getting back to this discussion, and the sad thing is this person was basically the younger family member was basically saying, well, where they live, they don't have problem with homeless because they live in North Dakota. And she's like, well, I can't move. I can't move my house, because, and I'm like, yeah, because you spend too much money. Because you have a spending problem. I live in a home with my wife, and I've lived here for 17 years. And guess what? We can move. And guess what? I make minimum wage. And my wife, if you average the amount of hours she works, she makes minimum wage. My family member who's lamenting makes 6 digits and has no children at home anymore. Okay? And because she's got so much debt racked up, she's bound herself. And that's what's happened in this country. People have let themselves get debt bound, and now they think that there's a politician out there that's going to help them. And then this person will sit there and lament and complain about other family members who aren't responsible enough. And then yet it's like you have a major, major drinking problem, and you have a major spending problem, and yet you want to sit there and talk about everyone else in your life and how the problems they have. Yeah, which is just a microcosm of the problem we have in pretty much the entire world. If you have a lot of people that don't have things, and you have a lot of people that do have things, the people that don't have things want what the people have. And the problem is, once again, we have overpopulated the planet. There are not enough resources to have every human live at the same standard of living. That was the peak and pinnacle of what the American lifestyle was in the 1940 or 1960s, right? The 50s and 60s and stuff. Since then, it has gone downhill, and that's because liberty was allowed to propagate, and the people were allowed to actually, grow. And now the government has overreached and allows, basically anyone to come into this country and do whatever they want, any kind of crime, because they know that if they do more crime, that they'll be able to put more laws that shackle the people that actually are law-abiding. The people like me who actually do what I'm told, try to be a productive citizen, and yet now I have to lose more and more liberties because of asshats out there like my family member who's misdirected at where they should have their ire at. So where should your ire be? Well, guess what? It probably should be at the person in the mirror. Okay? You look in the mirror and you be honest with yourself and you realize that all the problems that you create in your life and other people's lives because of the bad choices that you make, because of the fact that you are a bad life and you are basically trying to broadcast that to others and causing them to have bad lives. And then you wonder why there's rioting in the streets and companies lose stuff because the blimmers are out there stealing. Because the fact that the people who think they have a solution are actually the problem. And I tried to explain to her that we had a problem next to our house that I basically was able to fix for now. We had some renters move in next to us, and we live in a home. And we were finally, after about 6 months of going through the city to get them to shut their dogs up, we finally got them to be quiet. But the problem is, as soon as those people move out, and another set of renters move in, we're going to have the same issue because this neighborhood has been taken over by a different culture. The culture that I grew up in this city has changed now, and it's now a culture that likes to have dogs that bark all the time. It's a culture that likes to have loud music, and they like to have fiestas, and I have to live with it because I'm not allowed to fight against them, because I am a white person. So I have chosen to move. I have to leave. I have to move away because I will never win this battle like my poor sister-in-law. She's never going to win the battle that she has, and her life has become miserable and she laments about it. And me being a person that likes to fix problems, this person frustrates me to no end because this person is trying to make her life better and trying to make other people's lives better, but because of her dumb devotion to the Republican Party and to mantras that she learns, I'm afraid that she's never going to actually get there. And that's why I don't think Republicans or Democrats are ever going to fix this country. So anyway, yeah, so like I said, look in the mirror. The biggest problem, the way to fix what's going on in this country is to be honest with yourself. But the sad thing is people's ideas of morality, people's ideas of what's right and wrong are so skewed that they have gone off the path. They have no idea what it takes to live on a planet spinning through space. And unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of death because of it. So yeah, if you want to do your part, try to migrate to somewhere where you have like-minded people. And try to get out of those places that are being overrun by those that like the blims. And someday when the catastrophe happens, perhaps you'll survive because you decided to pick up and move away from those that would probably kill you if they had the opportunity.